Okay, so for those of you who've joined us for the other 5 sessions, my name is Aniesa and I am an occupational therapist with Sensational Kids. And today is our last talk, which is OT based. And the topic is emotional regulation / self-regulation. And actually it's quite a hard topic to narrow down, because it's absolutely massive. So what I thought I would do is give you a little bit of information on self-regulation, but then also give you a bit more information on the zones of regulation, which they tend to use in a lot of schools around the area. And it's something that you will see written on a number of the HCPs. So I thought we'd do that. And then I'm going to very, very briefly touch on sensory ladders, which is another type of regulation program that we use a lot, particularly with kids who have ASD, because it seems to be that the zones of regulation doesn't work so well for them. Okay, if there are any questions, you can just put it in the chat. If I remember to look, I'll look. Yeah, or we can just do it at the end. Okay, so let's see. So today really is it's about understanding self-regulation, which is really quite massive. And then, as I said, introduction to the zones, brief introduction to sensory spiders and sensory ladders, and then just some tools that we can use. Okay. When I speak to teachers and I say to them, why do we teach self-regulation? Why do we need to teach self-regulation? Well, it's not something that I was particularly taught at school or even at home. It's just something that we suddenly expect our children and young people to just know how to control their emotions, how to deal with them. But this is okay. Oh, my screen seems to have frozen. There you go. So there was a lot of freezing going on there, guys, wasn't there? Sorry about that. So what I say is, if you can't reach them, you can't teach them. Okay. And that doesn't just apply to school. Right. So when we talk about self-regulation, that is how well we can control our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors in relation to the environments or a specific situation. We talk about examples of self-regulation. So if you think about driving to work and someone cuts you off, and even though you have a young person in the car with you, completely lose it and just scream at the other driver, that's kind of like an adult version of a temper tantrum. Okay. Being able to screen out right now for me the noise of the fan, as well as the traffic going past, and not keeping thinking, oh, what is that? Do I need to pay attention to it? Sometimes you suddenly get bad news, but it's not appropriate to perhaps start crying then and there. So it's just kind of holding back tears. Delayed gratification is a big one, knowing that after, 5 sets of something at the gym, I can go into the steam room. Okay. Yeah. Impulse control is a massive one as well. Okay. We talk about understanding our self-regulation. We think about how well we are going to adjust our levels of alertness. We are going to think about how we manage all of those emotions. So managing feeling excited or feeling silly or feeling stressed or angry. And what we find is that some children and adults are often quite dysregulated because they can't self-regulate. Self-regulation is developmental, and it does develop over time through adulthood. And, you know, there are moments where you just can't contain yourself, where you just do get super, super, super excited. Okay. When we talk about how well we can link our learning to our self-regulation, you know, these are just a few facts that if an individual is really well regulated, they're going to have high academic achievement. Not that that's the be all and end all. You know, they talk about the school readiness and just the big thing that teachers have such a positive effect on our students' self-regulation by being co-regulators and by modeling regulation to them. Okay. So if we think about the components of self-regulation, we need to think about sensory processing and modulation. Now, we did this in one of the earlier sessions, and I'll just do a quick little recap. So your sensory modulation is going to be how well you can take in information that's coming in from the world, how your brain is going to sort out that information, and then how you're going to respond in a way that is in line with what has happened. Okay, so it's not over responding or under responding. So if someone shouts fire, you won't under respond by just sitting there. You'll get up and you'll hopefully get out of the room or out of the way. Okay, with our sensory modulation, we talk about our 8 senses. If there's anyone brave enough to unmute and name all 8 senses immediately, I will send you a free copy of my book. Let's see, anyone? Oh, anyone brave enough to just even unmute? Oh my gosh, guys. It's a hot day, isn't it? Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh.
I don't know them all. I'll try a few of them.
Go on, Damien.
Smell.
Yeah.
Sight.
Keep going.
Taste.
Yeah.
Touch. I'm gonna struggle now. Yeah, I'm struggling anymore.
Okay. You were very brave. Well done, Damien. Thank you. If you can just mute for me again, so then I don't have to listen to myself twice. So yeah, great. So you named the 5 kind of.
Oh, hello. Victoria. I think it worked. Can you hear me?
It's too late, Victoria. It's too late. Damien already
Hi, I was going to
jumped in there. Were you just going to help Damien, were you, Victoria?
Oh, well done.
Yeah, go on. You can tell him the other senses, Victoria. You should know the others. Where is she? Oh, she's left us now. Yeah, so you mentioned the ones that we all know about. So our sight, I always think about the top of the body. You talk about your sight, you talk about your hearing, your smell, your taste, your touch. And we tend to forget our proprioception, which is our sense of our body awareness. We talk about our vestibular sense, which is our sense of movement. So I'm sitting on a spinny chair right now. And then we talk about our interoception, which is how everything inside our body is relating to everything else. And that's just a massive one as well. And I am probably going to do a talk on interoception, obviously not through this forum, but yeah, if you guys want to join that one, because it is just so super, super important. Okay, so that is our sensory modulation. Then if we talk about our executive functions, again, that is absolutely massive as well. So we talk about, we did a session on this. I'm sure you guys were, for those of you who were there, it's what's going to help you to use all your previous experiences, your previous memories, and say, okay, I need to organize a trip. This is what worked in the past. This is what didn't work. This is how much time I need to allow for this. And so it's things like handing in in an assignment on time, or you know, thinking about if you are particularly organized or if you are inhibited. So if you can stop yourself saying something that you might be thinking. Okay, and executive functioning again consists of loads of different sections, like shift, being able to shift your emotions, shift your thoughts, your emotional control, how you're going to express your anger or show your anger, our working memory, your planning, yeah, being able to self-monitor all of those, okay? And then we talk about our emotional regulation. So that's how we're going to cope with all the demands of everything that's going on around us. We're also going to look at what we are using to monitor ourselves. Are we using things from the outside? Are we using our intrinsic ways of monitoring what we're doing? Okay, and then we talk about our social cognition as well. Right, are there any questions at that stage? Let's see in the chat. My computer's very slow today. No questions, okay. So when we talk about the zones of regulation, it's really important to not think of it as a discipline model, and to think about how we can think and manage our feelings. And a lot of schools have implemented this school-wide, or they might start in infants and then go up. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the question, see if it is for now. No worries, Victoria, that's fine. And you know, it's how we can help our students to understand their emotions, and the impact also that it's going to have on our levels of alertness. It can also then go further on and think about problem solving, how to deal with certain situations, especially social situations, and the idea that our behavior influences everyone else around us. Okay. All right. So if we think about just remembering that we can't change how anyone feels, not just a pupil or a child, but we can help them think about how they could respond differently to a situation. Zones is absolutely a tool, because we are luckily all individual and all so different. It has to be individualized. I see quite often the mistake that's made is that it's tried, schools, parents try and use it as kind of a one-size-fits-all solution, and that's just not going to work that well. Also really important to think about that behavior. Something that I can't stress enough is that it's not a naughty child, okay? The word naughty has so many negative connotations, and you know, telling a child it's bad to feel angry or stop crying, or there's no need to be sad, can actually be quite detrimental on their mental health and well-being. And something that I really, really try and stress, if you take one of the few things that you take away for today, is that there are no feelings are wrong. Okay, if you are absolutely furious, that's fine, it's a feeling. No feelings are wrong. Okay, and we talk about how important it is that when we want to be regulated, we have all our basic needs met. Okay, so food, water, play, sleep, love, security. And just a little aside there, as adults, we just don't play enough. We don't play enough with our kids, and we also just don't play enough in general. We've become very stressed and have lost that whole ability to play. And so, yeah, something else you can do as well, apart from taking away that there are no bad feelings, is that you need to play more. Okay. Right. So the zones of regulation is grouped into 4 colors. We have blue, with green, red, yellow and red. And we say the blue zone is when you're feeling tired, you might be feeling bored. I kind of describe it as that point after lunch where you're just feeling a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow to start. And the words that we start with, the basic words that we start with is kind of you are sad, you're tired, you're sick. And it might be that you're in pain. So there are a range of words that we can add to a child's word bank as they get more familiar, as they're able to use that information. Okay. Do use the inside out characters a lot because they are quite funny and quite fabulous. At the end, there's a link to some videos as well. So just scenes from shows like The Middle or Kung Fu Panda. Okay. Now we talk about the green zone, and that is, it's really a state where you are regulated. Your alertness levels is such that you can learn, you can do what you are expected to do. Okay. Being in the green zone is being in control. Yeah. The green zone is not the best zone. It's not the zone that we want to work towards. It's the green zone. It's where you feel focused and calm and happy. You're feeling okay. You can listen. You can take everything in. Something that quite often happens is that you're in a class or you're out and you have a teacher or parent say, right now, let's get you back to the green zone. And it's not about that. And that's just something that's quite important to be mindful of as well. Okay. Right. Oh. Okay, we then talk about the yellow zone. And I personally think that as an adult with ADHD, I spend a lot of my state kind of being in the yellow zone. And that's not because I'm anxious, but it's because I'm excited. I just want to do things fast. I'm always kind of squirming and fidgeting. And for me, quite often, I'm still in control. Okay. But what we say is when you get almost like to the top of the yellow zone is when you're starting to lose control. Okay. Quite often you're in the zone if you just have that underlying stress. We all have that underlying stress. So this morning I was up really early and I was just feeling a little bit frazzled, and I left a message for my lovely practice manager, and she must have thought, oh my God, are you on speed or something? Because I was like, and of course with WhatsApp, it's already at 1.5 times. So, so it's just that kind of that stress level, that anxiety. A lot of our kids have just this underlying anxiety that we don't always know it's there, but it's there. Okay, and if you know your child really well, you'll know it's there. And it's important to be able to explain that to teachers or anyone who's going to be caring for them. Okay. And of course, then we come to the red zone. So that is when you're feeling very, very intense feelings. Okay. I'm going to turn off my video just because it feels like it's freezing. Or is it okay for you guys? Can someone just unmute and tell me if my video is freezing?
It's fine. Your video is fine.
Okay. Thank you, Noreen. And so it could be that you are absolutely panicked. You are feeling just quite out of control. And, an example that I use quite often when I'm teaching the zones of regulation is if someone were to send me a message now, or someone were to come in and say, oh my gosh, you've won the lottery, which I never play, and it's like you've won £1 million, and I would be beside myself. I would be screaming and shouting, and I would have at that point lost control, if that makes sense. So you can be elated. It's not just negative emotions or negative feelings in the red zone. And that's also important to remember. Okay. Yeah, so that is the red zone. I am not going to play the YouTube video. You can, I'll put that in the link and you guys can look at it, because I get very distracted by that little inside out video. Okay, so when we teach the zones, if I am working with a child and I'm working with their family, if I'm going to implement something like the zones of regulation, I will start it with the child in clinic, and then I will always take it home. Because what I say to parents and families is that your emotions and your emotional states don't happen in isolation and are affected by other people, the situations you're going through, the environments that you're in. So I will often then take it home and teach it at home as well, and do a zones board for the whole family. Okay, so these are just some examples. There are tons and tons and tons of examples online of the zones, different zones that you're feeling. And what we say is that we're going to start first by being able to identify emotions, because, you know, you often have, sometimes you can't name a feeling. So if you think back to when you were at school and there's that feeling in your whole body just before an exam, and you don't know what that feeling is the first time you feel it, and the second and the third time, and you might then say, oh, I feel sick, or I feel worried, or just you're feeling nervous, you know. So being able to name those feelings. An emotion like jealousy is really quite hard to explain to kids, and for them to understand what that is, how they're feeling it. And again, that, you know, it's not wrong to feel jealous. It's what we do with that feeling of jealousy. Okay. So yeah, we, as young people get older, or even from a young age, what we try and do is we try and get them to understand how others are feeling, how others might be perceiving us, how others might be perceiving the different zones, how their feelings and actions and reactions are having an effect on other people, and then reflecting on it, on how they can change that and adapt that. Okay. When we teach the zones, once we've done that whole bit of what are your emotions, how are you feeling, we then also look at our triggers, so that if you can understand what your triggers are, you can understand yourself better. So you can either avoid them, but also know that you can't always avoid them. So when you can't avoid a trigger, a situation, what are you going to do to respond in a way that you are still going to be feeling in control? Okay. Are there any questions at this stage? I'm just going to check. Nope. I'm just going to have a little drink. Okay. Something else that is really important with our zones is we talk about our tools. We talk about what we are going to do to help ourselves feel more regulated and feel more in control. So it's also thinking about that language to say, what tools are you going to use to help you feel more in control, to help you feel calmer and more regulated, rather than what tools are you going to use to get you back to the green zone. Because we don't want kids, because by saying get back to the green zone, what you are implying is that being in the other zones is wrong. Okay, and that's that's not true. What we teach quite often we'll say to kids, oh, just breathe. But how often do we actually teach kids to breathe? I know no one taught me as in how to breathe for calming and regulating. I would often say to my kids, oh, just take a breath, and then would do that. And that's not going to be helpful really, unless you want to try and practice the Wim Hof method, which is not quite what that is. So I think it's really, really important that we teach kids how to breathe. And if you just indulge me and do a little exercise with me. So something that's really important is when you're sitting with your kids, the young adults you care for, you teach, is when you say to them, okay, let's take a deep breath in through our nose. What you'll often see is, and the shoulders go up, and they're kind of doing that. And actually, what we need to teach our kids is that when you're breathing in, you're taking in the air, which means it's filling your lungs, and that you can feel your belly expand. So I would say to kids, put your hands on your belly and feel the air fill your tummy. Okay. Quite often, some kids find that really, really hard. So if you're at home, you can, obviously with your child's consent, you can put your hands on their belly, and when they're breathing out is really push down so they can feel what that out breath should be feeling like. Okay. Now I do a number of breathing methods, and it really just depends on the child, and it also depends on your day and your state of emotion. So I am a massive fan of nasal breathing. There is so much research out there. And if you have a chance to listen to some of Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's podcasts on breathing, it's phenomenal what it can do. So one of the breathing techniques that I like to do with kids is we use our hand, and I have a picture of this. If someone reminds me, I can send this to you. And you are going to breathe in as you trace your hand and go up. So now you're becoming, it's becoming more concrete. You're adding that sense of touch. Oh, thanks, Bev, for following along. Nice to see you. And you're then going to go up. And when you get to the top, you're going to hold, and then you're going to breathe out. Okay, kids find it hard to breathe out in and out through their noses initially, so we'll do out through the mouth, and then you just do that again. Hold. 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 And then with the last one, I say try and go as long as you can. Oh, Bev's gone all the way to her armpit. Well done. But it's just, I don't know if you were doing it, Bev, if you feel the difference just in just taking that breath, and it's really important. I like adding a physical side to it, so the side of touch, because that again is another way of getting that child or the adult to focus and to regulate, because as we've heard in my previous talks, touch is also just so important. With some kids, you can just do a in for 4, like a little square, a box one, in for 4, hold for 4, or hold for this side of the square, out for 4, and then natural for 4. And that. So really, there is no one technique that works better than the other. It is about what's going to work for that child. I said, yeah, breathing techniques. Yeah, Jessica, I would really think about the type of breathing that you're using. And also another thing, just as an aside, is when we are teaching any tools, we don't teach them for the first time in the moment. So if I get home and I'm really, really frazzled and the house is an absolute mess and my boys and my husband say, just calm down. Well, I'm sorry, but I could end up spending the night in prison because I'm not just going to calm down, okay? And that's something that we do quite often. If you think of the number of times either at schools where you just see someone's little, you know, where they'll say to the child, oh, just calm down, it's okay, it's okay. And actually what we need to be doing is just acknowledging that moment, acknowledging those feelings at that time, and then later use that as a teaching moment, okay? You can then go on and you can we can talk about, you know, size of the problem. Is it a big problem or is it a little problem? So, you know, you might have a child come in going, I left my pencil, my favorite, I don't know even what it is, let's say Paw Patrol pencil at home, and I can't do any work today and it's just the worst thing ever. And you say, okay, so is it a big problem or is it a little problem? And how we try and teach this is that a little problem will only affect you, one person, one or two people for a very short time. It's not going to be, and then a big problem. So, oh my gosh, the house next door is on fire. And I use that example because it did happen to one of the kids I was working with. And that's a big problem. So a number of people are involved. It's going to last for more than just a few seconds or a minute. It's going to last for a long time. So that's the big problem, and just kind of working through that whole kind of that flexible thinking and problem solving approach. Okay. We talk about our inner coach and our, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Our inner coach and our inner critic. You know, we tend to see kids do a lot of negative self-talk. We don't model enough positive self-talk. So I will, you know, really, really often in sessions, I would say, come on, Aniesa, you can do this. So today, actually, I had a little boy that I was assessing, and I got out my noisy puzzles and I thought it was all amazing. And he just freaked out. And then when I tried to put all the noisy puzzles away, I dropped it all. It's like that moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, silly Aniesa, you know, but it's okay. I can do it. You can pack it all up. It's fine. You know, so having that, doing that with out loud, because we are quite often, we don't model this for our kids because we think it's a sign of weakness. We think it's a sign of weakness to say, I am so annoyed right now, or I am so angry, or I'm really struggling with this, but I'm just going to keep on trying. Okay. And yeah, so that's also quite important. I will send you some more information on the jackhammer and the volcano. They are actual like physical movements that we do, but we don't have enough time, and I like doing it in person because then I can see everyone be jackhammers. There was a question regarding, so six-sided breathing again is you think of a shape and you trace it, you breathe it that way. Lazy 8 breathing is, you know, it's an 8, the number 8, and we say he's lazy because he's lying on his side like the infinity sign. And so you can either then just have the child trace the lazy 8 as they breathe, or just do it in, again, bringing in that physical kinesthetic element of just, and drawing it in the air and then just breathing that way. Okay. There are also probably a lot of different variations on these. So yeah, do have a look and see. I think the most important thing when you're going to teach breathing is that we want to go in through the mouth, and we want to make sure that our bellies and our lungs are expanding to get that air inside. Okay. That was that. So let me just check that question quickly. And the visual on, oopsie. Sorry guys, my screen is just, okay, you're welcome. Sorry, I didn't see, oh, I'll get back to that one if I've missed it. My laptop's having a moment today. So when we talk about things that we can do, is using scenarios quite often, using, there's a great board game called Navigating the Zones, and literally it's a massive board game, and you have loads of different scenarios. You have like a home scenario, a school scenario, and some of the kids just absolutely love that, because it gives them a chance to think about something without it being personal, without it being in the moment as well. You know, we say things like you can walk away, just walk away, or just say to someone, stop, please stop doing that, ignore it. It's really hard to ignore things when you have someone who's constantly at you, particularly if it's like another child or some other children. And then we say, you know, talk it out. A lot of schools now have in the playground, they have little peer stations, or where you can just go for just a rest to get away from it. But again, what you're going to do is going to be very individual to you, and it's also going to be very individual to that situation at that time. Okay. I like to say to adults, I like to encourage them to use things that are happening in the moment. So I can remember, and some of you probably heard me say this before, I was doing a group. I don't know what on earth made me think that doing a group with, I think it was 4 or 5 boys with a mixture of ADHD and ASD, to do a group with them on the zones in a small confined space. But it did get to a point where no one was listening. I can't remember, obviously just my stress levels were just going up, and I literally found myself just getting really, really annoyed. And I just said, guys, I'm going out, because I can't deal with this right now. I'm feeling annoyed, I'm feeling tetchy, I'm feeling irritable, because I've asked for you to do something and you're not listening to me, and I'm feeling disrespected. So I'm just going to go outside and I'm just going to count to 10. And I literally opened the door and just stood out there. And at that point, I then realized, oh, okay. And then I then counted out loud, and then I came back and they were saying, oh, Mrs. Blore, were you in the yellow zone or the red zone? You know, were you like super angry? Did you try and find your control again? And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't plan that, but yeah, you know, so just do that with the kids and the young people that you're working with. Right, let's see. Someone said they needed their own wheel. Yeah, definitely we all need our own wheels. Or it's just even not having that wheel, but it's just knowing, just having that kind of awareness of different things you can do. So quite often, okay, I'm not going to get distracted. I'm going to move on. So we'll have a toolbox like that for the kids, and it's things that they can do to help them again feel more in control. This will be in the handouts, but again, also you can have different versions of that. Okay. One of the biggest things that we can do is obviously to take a break and to make that a sensory break, which I've spoken about before. And it's just, oh, was I on camera there, Bev? Am I in your picture? I will give you the handout. I'm just kidding, Bev. I will send the handouts, I promise. I just need to.
No, I was just taking a picture of that one, because sometimes I struggle with what to suggest when Tommy's completely out of it, you know. So we do breathing together, 3 breaths together, but then sometimes I think I'd like more things for him to have in his toolbox, if you like, and I never think what they want to be, so that's really helpful.
And I think also just the whole idea of going to a quiet space is also just really useful. Just saying, actually, I'm just going to go sit on the stairs for 5 seconds or a minute, or I'm just going to, you know, just do something just to take myself away. That's also something that's really, really useful. In terms of how we can implement the zones, I will often give kids so these little hearings like that. And what we will put on there is, because it's so individual, I would say to the kids, okay, let's have perhaps the 4 colors, the colors of the zones. And what they would have on there is, we work together and we write things that they can do on one side. So then they can just quickly look at it. It's there. Also, why I like the idea of that is that it becomes something for them to, not a fidget toy, because I don't say that anymore, a focus tool. So they have that with them as well. And they have the little things on there. Interesting how when I started using it, it's now become a focus tool rather than a fidget toy. But yeah, so just little things like that. We've done for kids, you know, you've done like the little half wheel where you've got an arrow that slides and you turn it over and you can see the things that you can do on that side. So again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be that everyone has the same thing. I have a lot of older kids who, I mean, at one stage they asked me to make an app so that they could just, when they come into class, they could tick the color that they were in and it would go to the teacher on their iPads and the teacher would know. So it might say yellow zone, but I don't need help, just so the teacher's aware that something has happened. Obviously, because I have all the time in the world, I haven't got around to that yet, but you know, it's things like that. Just if everyone is aware of it, even just coming in, we have little beads that you can slide along and you can push the bead where you are, the color of the bead that you are, or you can have a little ice lolly stick and that can be the thing that's on your desk and a teacher can just come and discreetly say, are you okay? Do you need anything? Okay. So that is the zones of regulation. And things that you can do is you can have a big check-in board. We have our boards down there. Just give me a second. I'm just going to take these off. And the classes will have these felt boards and you can see what zone am I in, okay? And you can then go on to the tools that you can use. Now, this is obviously a big scale version. It's something that you can do in class, but you can also just have that nice and small, have it individualized for the child. Okay, let me just check that question quickly. Make a copy of that. Yeah, signaling is really important. And yeah, and so we just talk about the different ways that you can do it. I like to say if you're going to use the zones in schools, is to have it consistent in all the classes to make sure that when it's implemented, it is very, very clear that it's not punitive, it's not for discipline, it's really just so that we can get better self-regulation and emotional regulation. Yeah, there are some schools who often say, oh, you've got a red card. So again, that's something you need to think about in terms of the colors, because yeah, it's fine if they, you know, are in the red zone. Sarah, yes, I will email the handouts. I just want to tweak a couple of bits. Yeah, so again, that is the zones. Something that, if there aren't any more questions on that, let's just quickly look. You're amazed at the fact, Jessica says she's amazed at the fact the zones can be individualized. Yeah, it should be individualized, right? It's like, I'm not going to get into this right now, but I will just touch on it because I've started now and my brain can't let go of that. It's like when you get, so when my child was diagnosed, we were told, okay, you've got 12 weeks, you can re-refer in those 12 weeks, otherwise the case is closed, off you go, have a happy life. If we were then to see an OT, we would get more or less a similar thing because he was not deemed as severe enough. And because they said, oh, well, you're an OT, you can do all the stuff with him. And they give you a sensory diet. And something that I'm really, really passionate about is that when you get a sensory diet, it should not have 1,000,001 activities on there. It should have 4 or 5 activities that are going to be meaningful and impactful for your child in those different situations. So if you have a sensory diet and it just lists loads and loads and loads and loads, there might be a reason why that was done. And it might be that that works. But quite often the parents I work with, because I work a little bit differently to the other OTs, I do more of the coaching side as well, is that's just overwhelming. It's like having a pick a mix. And actually, I just want to know 4 things. I want 4 choices. And those are the ones that I'm going to do really well. Okay, back to where we are now. So I want to just, is Bev laughing at me? So sensory ladders. Sorry, no, that's going. You can see I'm still doing this one. I'm just going to delete that now. So sensory ladders is something that I absolutely love. It is a way of working on that emotional regulation that really suits some kids who have ASD, because they can't, that emotional side hasn't quite kicked in, and their sensory needs are so massive and so interlinked with absolutely everything. And when we talk about interoception, which again is massive, we talk about how actually it affects, how you're hungry, how you're thirsty, but also how you are going to respond, your self-regulation, your emotional regulation. And so what we do is an amazing OT, South African, called Kath, and she developed sensory ladders, and it's available for free. I can send you the link for the parents course. It's really, really amazing. It's anywhere, anytime you can use it, and it works on, if we think about the brain, it works on kind of those states of our emotional regulation where you can sometimes just freeze and you just don't actually know what you're doing, all the way down to when you're asleep. So if we start at the bottom, so at purple, that's everything from being sleepy, asleep, or that really deep sleep. Then we talk about when you are under alert, or so it's blue, but it's more of a feeling. You're awake. It's like before actually I wake up awake. Like for some people, it's that after lunch feeling, or you wake up and you're not fired up yet. You kind of, you're maybe bored, you may be cozy, you're just not ready for action. Okay. When we talk about our calm alert state, so we talk very much about our states, rather than the colors. So our calm alert state is where we can think, where we can learn. And I'm just going to see if I can quickly find. So the idea with the zones is what with the sensory ladders, why we don't, okay, I'll have to do that another time. Just ignore me. I'm just going to go back to where I was. There we are. Is that the colors are very individual. You can even attribute them to, say, for example, Power Rangers. So this Power Ranger is the one that's over alert. This one is always asleep. So if you think of like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which one is which. So it doesn't have to be a color, it can be a state. And that's what's really nice, is that kids can use. So I've got a family who they've used all the pets in the family, because they have the cat who's always kind of just ready and irritated and annoyed. But they also put the dog in there because he's always jumpy and excited and can't do anything. Right, so then we talk about our being in that over alert state. So that's when you kind of go into that whole fight or flight. And we say when you are in the fight stage, you are just stroppy, you're just irritable, you're angry, you're just tetchy. It's almost like you're just prickly. It's that state that you're in. You could be quite distracted, quite unfocused. When you are in that flight zone, you really just want to be left alone. You just want to leave the situation. Okay. And then when we get to that freeze state is when you are just stuck, you're just frozen, you are